Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. I've got something a little bit different than what I've done before on the channel in the sense that this is a new gun. Not just new to me, but fairly new design and new to the market as well. It is a Hammerli Force B1. I've started to get into some NFA stuff recently. Got a couple of suppressors, got a 22 can on this rifle. What I didn't have before now was a bolt action 22 with a threaded barrel to act as a suppressor host. The suppressor runs wonderfully on my Ruger 1022 and my 22 pistols, but I wanted something that I could shoot around with and be even quieter. So a bolt gun was sort of what I went out looking for. There are a lot of options in the market for bolt guns, bolt 22 rifles that have a threaded barrel. Got a lot of stuff from like Savage and Rossi at kind of the lower end of the spectrum, all the way up to Volquartz and Summits, which are $1,600, $1,800, and I'm sure there's much nicer rifles than that you can spend crazy amounts of money on. I wanted something sort of in the middle of the road. Um, Even the Browning T-bolts are really nice rifles as well. They come in at $900 to $1,000 generally, which was it's still a chunk of money, especially for a 22 bolt gun that'll be most of the time a blinking rifle. So what I found was that Hammerli, who is actually owned by Walther, and Umarex is the company that manufactured this gun, but it is branded and marketed as a Hammerli, they had come out with their Force B1, which is a straight pull action. I like straight pull guns. I think they're interesting. They're a little bit different. There are not a ton of straight pull 22s in the market. The more common ones that you'll come across are the Steyr Rimfire Scouts, RFR Scouts. They were imported under another brand name as well. I don't recall what it was, but it was the same rifle just without the Steyr branding on it. And then there's a lot of sort of like biathlon rifles. You'll see some Izhmash straight pull biathlon rifles as well. Those are really nice guns. But again, if you're lucky enough to find one, they generally start at around the $1,000 mark. And a lot of the Izhmashes don't have threaded barrels either. So anyhow, middle of the road stuff that kind of leaves this. I'd watched some videos on it, and I sort of figured like, well, it's a 22 straight pull rifle. I don't know how it could possibly be bad, right? Everybody in the market should be able to make a decent 22 rifle. This one's fine. It's a little underwhelming though, and I want to talk about some of the stuff. And some of this is going to be nitpicky, but if you found this video, you're probably thinking about purchasing one of these, and they're not, they're not $200 rifles. MSRP on this is $650. I got this from KY Gun Co. for I think $530 plus a transfer on my end. Let's call it $550 or so. And they do have, or will be coming out with nicer models with wood stocks of different grades and colors and all that. But this is sort of the base rifle, and MSRP is $650. Street price seems to be $550 or so. So that's not nothing. And like I said, there's some things that I like about this rifle, and then there's some things that I don't. So let's get into, first off, what I do like about the rifle. I like some of the features of the stock. Most notably on the stock, there is an M-LOK section that comes in the bottom here. It's a steel insert, so you can mount stuff on it. I have a fairly cheap bipod on here. In the near future, I'll also be putting a sling swivel up here as well, because there is a QD swing swivel down in the butt. Don't have a sling on it right now, obviously. So that's neat. The action is actually really nice. When I got it out of the box, it was a little rough and gritty. I've now put about somewhere between 13 and 1,500 rounds through this rifle. Dry fired it a lot, worked the bolt a lot. It's slicked up quite a bit now. That's nice. I like the oversized bolt handle here. It's actually really nice to just sort of put your fingers on it like this, grab it with your thumb, work the action, trigger, work the action, trigger. That's a really quick way to run this rifle. You can also, with the way it's positioned, you can grab it with your thumb and your forefinger and then use your middle finger on the trigger. Sort of like the, ostensibly the Lee Enfield style of running a bolt gun quickly. I like that. I like the angle of the pistol grip. It's in a good spot for me. I've got pretty large hands. I also like the fact that it takes a lot of 1022 parts. Like, for instance, the trigger group in here, this is actually a Ruger BX trigger. The factory trigger on this was one thing that I really did not care for. It's about I think I measured about 6.5 pounds or so pull, and it's just really gritty, a lot of take up. So I found a pretty good deal on a Ruger BX trigger, and that drops right in. It also takes 1022 magazines, sort of. This is a regular 10 round 1022 mag, and I don't know if you can see from back there. Let me actually come around the camera. So if you'll notice, this magazine has like a little plastic spacer on the back. That's because the mag well in that rifle is designed to accept 22 Magnum length Ruger 1022 mags. So why would you want a 22 long rifle gun that takes 22 Magnum sized magazines? Well, I'll show you. Sort of the big party trick for this rifle is that it has an interchangeable barrel. So you can take this collar, pull it back, and then the barrel comes right out of the gun. This isn't really intended for like a takedown type of rifle. It's intended so that you can swap these barrels to different calibers. Allegedly, Hammerli is going to be offering at least 22 Magnum. I found a couple sources that say they're also going to be doing 17 HMR, but I don't think that's been confirmed by them. But it would be nice to be able to swap calibers and shoot 22 LR, 22 mag, and 17 HMR, all out of the same gun, all with a quick change barrel. So everything in life is a compromise, and that interchangeable barrel is no different. My main gripe with this rifle is the fact that it's just not particularly accurate. It's not marketed as a precision rifle, it's not marketed as a match grade rifle or anything like that, but it's really tough to get this thing to print less than about a 4.5 or 5 inch group at 100 yards. Normally, it's shooting more like a 6 inch group at 100 yards. At 50 yards, you can get it down to like 2 inches, give or take. I've actually got some footage rolled in here of a target that I shot along with my stock Ruger 1022's comparisons. You can sort of get an idea for what this thing does with good quality match ammunition and some other decent ammunition. So what we've got here are 6 10-shot groups. The top row here is what we shot with the Hammerli. The bottom row here is what we shot with a completely stock Ruger 1022. Absolutely nothing done to this thing. Both rifles did have optics on them. The 1022 had a 3-9 that I ran at 9 power. So to make it fair, I set the 4-12 optic on the Hammerli to 9 power. And you can see right here we've got, this is the same type of ammo, which is Ely Club. This is the same type of ammo, SK Rifle Match. This is really good stuff. And then over here we have CCI Standard Velocity as sort of a more common, sort of a control, I guess you'd say. So again, 50 yards, 10-shot groups. The Hammerli, the best group that it was able to return was a .848. So somewhere between 3/4 and 1. Actually, no, that math is wrong. That would be about a little bit larger than a 1.5 MOA group. And that is, again, with relatively expensive, not the best match ammunition you can get, but decent quality match ammunition for 22 LR. That same ammunition in a stock 1022 shot a group that was just barely bigger than a 1/2 inch. I mean, that's all one ragged hole in there. That would be just a hair over a 1 MOA group. Over here, we have the sort of middle of the road stuff. This is Ely Club. This is pretty analogous to sort of CCI Standard Velocity, Ely Club are about the same level of quality. Both decent, but nothing, certainly not match ammunition. With the Hammerli, we got a group of almost 1 3/4 inches, 1.742 to be exact. And with the stock Ruger 1022, we got a group size of 0.644 inches, smaller than 3/4 inch, and really not much bigger than we got out of the SK Rifle Match. The worst performing group over here was, for both rifles, was CCI Standard Velocity. The Hammerli did an almost 2-inch group, 1.940, and the 1022 managed a group size of just under an inch. So this is almost 4 MOA. This is just under 2 MOA. The interesting thing is, keep in mind, these are all shot at 50 yards. It would stand to reason that these group sizes should scale up in a linear fashion, you know, for MOA at a given distance. And with the 1022, they do. I can, with SK Rifle Match, I can reasonably reliably shoot a 1.5 inch or better group, which is 1.5 MOA or better group at 100 yards. There's some spread just due to the magnification of the optic, and stuff happens in an extra 50 yards of range, but it's very reliably around a 1.5 MOA rifle with good quality ammunition. The interesting thing is that if you take the Hammerli out to 100 yards, even if you max magnification out to 12 power, you would think this would be, would translate to roughly a 4-inch group, but it doesn't. It goes up to like 6.5 to 7.5. I even had some that honestly looked more like hole punches at random across a target. You're talking, like 9 to 10-inch range. So I'm not sure really what's going on there. The other 22 rifles I have, and in general, other rifles that you shoot at slightly longer distance, the group size itself may be larger, but the MOA size of the group stays roughly the same with some variation. That does not seem to hold true for the Hammerli. They tend to grow a bit bigger than the MOA would suggest. So yeah, that's the story of accuracy and precision. Well, I guess that's the story of precision, not necessarily accuracy, since we're looking at group sizes, for the Hammerli Force B1. But yeah, accuracy is a bit lacking. So if you want a precision 22 rifle, go get a precision 22 rifle, something like, the Ruger Rimfire RFP? RPR, that's what it is, a Ruger RPR, the Ruger Rimfire Precision Rifle. There's some options from CZ. I have a CZ 455, which is a stunningly accurate rifle, even though they're discontinued now. They've been replaced by the CZ 457s. There's a lot of really, really high quality, very accurate 22s on the market. Unfortunately, I don't really feel like this is one of them. Again, this is just my rifle, my shooting, sample size of 1, all that. But I haven't been particularly impressed with the rifle, with the accuracy of the rifle, I should say. The other thing that I'm not really a fan of is just the general fit and finish and feel of the rifle. It's a $550 gun. Before you add an optic, which you have to because it doesn't come with any irons, before you get rid of, the frankly pretty atrocious factory trigger, it's $550 at minimum. The quality of particularly the polymer that's used on the stock leaves a lot to be desired. It's really soft, actually scratches very easily. I've got a lot of marks here from previous takes of this video where I've done this with my fingernails, and it leaves marks on the stock just with very, very light pressure. It sounds very hollow, very thin, and just doesn't feel like really high quality polymer like you'd expect, from a polymer stock gun in 2024. I think if like a Hogue overmolded stock would make this thing feel quite a bit better. It's not horrible, but you expect a little bit nicer for, $500 plus. The other thing that really sort of chaps me about this stock is the butt stock is adjustable, right? So there's a 6-position sliding butt stock here, but you got to be really careful when you go to pull it all the way out because without hardly any force, it slides right off. That stop is kind of poorly designed. And again, everything here is just sort of wiggly and flimsy. There is a cheek riser here that you can adjust, well not adjust, but 2 positions. Take it out, flip it over, and if you push it all the way down, it will be flush. Or I run mine flipped up, so I have a little bit more rise on the cheek piece there. In addition to just, and you hear how hollow and kind of chintzy that sounds. Additionally, the size of the stock is just sort of odd. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'2", I'm 240 pounds, got pretty long arms. With the stock collapsed all the way down, this is a pretty comfortable length of pull for me. It's not too short, it's not too long, it's very natural, puts everything right where you expect it to be. If you extend this out to the maximum, it's really kind of awkward for me. It feels like this hand is way out forward. Actually, my shoulder is starting to kind of want to push the rifle this way, just because of how my upper arm has to come out to grab onto the grip of the rifle. I don't know who's shooting this out in the final position, maybe like Shaq or something. There's a lot of people that use 22 rifles to, teach their kids how to shoot, or, shorter stature people, smaller people tend to, sort of defer to 22s. This would be sort of a difficult gun to shoot. I feel like if you were under 5'10" or so, to me, I wish they would have actually just made, with the stock fully collapsed, I wish they'd made the length of pull maybe about 1.5 inches shorter. And that way you could have this in like the middle of the adjustment range and have it whatever this length of pull is here. I'm sure there's a spec on the website. And then for you people that are 6'3", 6'4", and even taller, then you have a little bit more adjustment beyond that. Like this position here should be, in my opinion, should be sort of the midpoint for stock adjustability. It's just weird that it's so long. So I've alluded a couple times to making some changes. Like I said, the trigger on this thing is just not great. It's a 1022. The original trigger is 6.5 pounds or so. The Ruger BX trigger is quite a bit nicer than that. And there are plenty of options for 1022 triggers that are even better than this. That did not make a massive difference in accuracy. It definitely helped improve it some, but it wasn't night and day. I really do think that the main culprit for accuracy is this barrel lockup, because it's a glorified air compressor fitting. I don't know if you'll hear this or not, but there's some radial play in that barrel. Like there's no way that lockup is exactly the same every time. I'm not even going to fault the thing for zero shift when you take the barrel out and put it back in. I've noticed at 50 yards up to 3 or 4 inches of zero shift, but it's a air compressor fitting essentially. I would sort of expect that. So I wouldn't just go taking the barrel on and off for cleaning or anything, because every time you take it out of the range, you're going to have to re-zero it. At least my example, that's what you have to do. But that's up to you. Just wanted to sort of make you aware. The optic on here, this is a Vortex Sonor 4 to 12 by 44. Definitely one of Vortex's lower end optics, but it's pretty cost effective. It's a 22 plinker. Do you really need $1,000 worth of glass on top of a $500 rifle? The Picatinny rail is machined into the top of the receiver, so it's integrated. It's not like a bolt-on rail like you have on 1022s generally. There is no rise to this. I know a lot of, like the Volquarts and Summits have a 20 MOA cant built into them. This is just a 0-degree flat cant. The main quality issue that I have, quality complaint, I should say, that I had with this rifle was actually, oh, there we go. It was the threads on the barrel here, because I only have one 22 can, and I have a number of 22 firearms that have threaded barrels. So anytime I come to the range to shoot suppressed, this can is getting swapped around a lot to different hosts. And I noticed I could put this on my 10 to 22, it would thread on perfectly fine. I could put it on a Rossi, it would thread on perfectly fine. I could put it on a friend's M&P 1522, it would thread on perfectly fine. Same thing for the pistols that I tried it on, it was great. But when you went to put this on this rifle here, you could get about 2 or 3 turns, it would be okay, and then by the time you got down to here, you were having to use like 2 hands sometimes to really wrench this thing on. It got to be really, really difficult to thread onto the barrel and have it bottom out against the shoulder. I only did that a couple of times before I thought, like this doesn't feel right. The threads in the can are aluminum, the threads on the barrel are steel. I was concerned I was going to gall them up or stretch the threads or something. So I ordered a tap and die set for half 28, and I took the tap and I ran it just by hand without a handle on it. I ran it into the end of the suppressor and it went in like butter. I mean, it just slid right in, picked up the threads nice and easy, didn't cut any material, it was great. I then took the die. Before I tried it on here, I tried it on a couple of my other threaded barrel 22s, and the 10 half 28 die went down on those threads nice and smooth, didn't cut any material at all. When I put the half 28 die on the muzzle threads for this rifle, by the time I got about a half of a turn in, it was already cutting a thread, a very thin sliver of metal off of the threads on this threaded barrel. So I kept running the tap down. I didn't actually put a handle on. I was able to grab it with my hands and work it down. And I ran it all the way down, ran it back up, and did that a couple more times, and it cleaned up the threads and cut them, I assume, to the proper spec. So there's something about the half 28 threading on the muzzle of this rifle that was just wrong. I don't know if that's a widespread issue, but it was certainly an issue on my example. So that's about it. It's not a perfect rifle. It's not a precision rifle. For the money, I think you deserve a little bit better than the example that I've got. The other thing that I'd like to mention is I did and still do experience some unreliability with this rifle. And that's really mainly with extraction. It doesn't seem to matter ammo brand. It doesn't seem to matter what magazine I'm using. I suspect there's something with the extractor where it can't always grab the rim of the case and give it a nice clean yank out of the breech. Because a lot of times, sometimes the case won't even come out of the chamber. You have to slam the bolt home and yank it out again to get the case to move out. Sometimes it'll pull the case out and it'll just hang out in like the feeding area and you'll get a double feed. It's not great. I'd say maybe once every 25 to 30 rounds I get that malfunction. The first couple of times that it happened, I thought, well, I'm just running the bolt too slow. You know, I got to be real rapid with it. And ever since then, I've made an effort to run the bolt very quickly and very positively, let's say. And I still have that issue. There's actually a very short video review that KY Gunco put up where they have the same issue. And I think the guy shooting the rifle was like, oh, I must have just short stroked it. But if you rewind the video and watch again, he runs the bolt pretty quickly. It just doesn't get the round out of the chamber. So that's frustrating. Um, I don't know if I'm going to send this rifle back to Hammerli. I'm not really, I'm more of a fix it myself kind of person. So I may experiment some with extractors and springs and make a few changes on my own and see if I can fix that issue myself. I mean, it is under warranty from Hammerli. I'm sure they would take it and look at it. But honestly, I don't know. I'm of the opinion that when you spend your hard-earned money on a piece of equipment, whether it be a rifle, whether it be tools, whether it be whatever, it should, in general, work straight out of the box. You shouldn't really have to tune it yourself. Um, but that said, when it does need tuning, I don't really have a problem messing around with stuff. I like projects and working on things. But yeah, we'll see. I may yet send this rifle back to Hammerli. So that's really all I have about this. That's the good and the bad. Hopefully, if you're thinking about buying one of these, you found this video beforehand. You can use some of this information to sort of weigh your options. I think I would buy this rifle again, um, but I would prefer to spend, like most things in life, I prefer to spend a little less money on it. I think for the issues that I've had, the general fit, feel, finish, quality of the rifle, this to me feels more like a $400 rifle. And I suspect that if they don't really take off in the market, you'll probably see them down around that price point within a couple of years. Um, it's a little weird, it's a little odd. There are going to be some people that just don't want a straight pull. And who knows, maybe they sell great, maybe they don't, we'll find out. I don't really think this is going to be the next, 1022 or anything like that. But it is an interesting platform and just a little bit of a change of pace. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. I do stuff like this fairly often. I'm not sponsored by anybody. Obviously, I've only got 7 viewers on the channel. But I enjoy making this content. I do it very sporadically as I have something interesting or as I have something I think is worth making a video on. I'll put something out and upload it. But yeah, thanks for watching. That's been my take on the Hammerli Force B1. Get out on the range, have some fun, shoot safe, shoot straight.